We are 4AR people, and we have a great podcast ahead. Stay tuned.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're here to talk about Taylor Swift's new album. Just kidding. We are here to talk about Fiscal Session, Week 2. We are 4AR people, and I am Aaliyah.
I'm so glad we're not talking about Taylor Swift because I'm not a Swiftie and I would not be able to partake.
What we are going to start talking about, though, are your headphones. Where did you find them? I would like a pair.
These, if you're only listening, I am wearing a very stylish pair of children's blue headphones. We're trying to up our game here at the 4A People podcast, and I have this really great microphone that's very professional, and it was recommended to me by a professional radio person. However, I forgot to get a recommendation for headphones, and so I am now using these child's bright blue headphones. So I am so sorry to all of you who are just listening and not watching because you're really missing out.
They look incredible.
Well, thank you.
They really do. So the big news for week 2 are where the lectern gate audit meeting. The lectern gate audit was finally, after about 6 months, made available to the public, and the fate of all of the crypto bills. We're going to start with some other really bad news, which is that it now seems the legislators will be in session until May 2nd, which is about a week later than the original April 25th. So a moment of silence, please. But the lectern gate audit was made public to last Monday, I believe it was. The legislators got a chance to review it, and then it was provided to the public. And then the very next day, they had a legislative audit meeting. And it was a real banger. It was about 3.5 hours long. There were representatives from the governor's office to try and put forward some kind of defense. And then there was also a representative from the AG's office to defend the opinion that the AG released the week prior to the lectern gate audit getting made public.
It was quite remarkable to see members from the governor's office sitting for a legislative committee meeting. I mean, those meetings are generally like they take reports from, different people from different state departments. And sometimes they can feel like a hearing, but typically it's just like this normal question and response situation between the two parties. But this felt like a hearing. Mm-hmm. And it was, you could see them sweating. It was tense.
It really was. Yeah, I think the details are pretty legally complex, and we're not lawyers, so I don't want to steer our listeners wrong. But one thing that did really jump out at me were just how many members of the governor's own party were throwing some pretty hard-hitting questions towards Courtney Kennedy and Judd Deere from the governor's office. They were really looking for answers, whether or not they were satisfied by the ones they received, or they'll do anything with the information that they now have, of course, remains to be seen. But like Jenny said, they really made the governor's representatives sweat for, again, it was about 3.5 hours. It was a long one.
I recall during the FOIA special session last fall, there was the representative from the governor's office, who's her, I guess, legal
chief legal counsel.
Yes, thank you, chief legal
Courtney
counsel,
Kennedy.
Courtney Kennedy. So Ms. Kennedy, during the FOIA special session, was kind of dodgy with a lot of questions in one of those committees, if I'm remembering correctly. And this was, I think, like, she portrayed a lot more confidence in what she was saying, but it was not taken well by members of the committee, chief among them, Representative Dalby, who was super feisty in response and found Courtney's comments quite patronizing. At least it seemed like. She's the chair of judiciary, and she was basically like, "Don't cite the deep magic to me." Like, I was there when it was written. It was kind of funny and tense. I was not there in person, but Sam, you were. Could you feel vibes?
The vibe in the room was incredibly tense. I mean, I think she said literally, like, "Don't explain the statute to me. I'm a lawyer." And, and she was not the only one. Senator Hickey was also getting pretty feisty. Senator Payton was getting pretty feisty. Even people who are normally pretty in the governor's pocket, like Senator Hammer, even Representative Gazaway, who was chairing audit, like, was not comfortable with some of the answers that were being provided. Then, of course, you had some of the governor's other stooges that were trying to run interference for her and failing, because this audit is very bad for the governor. It is very much a, indictment is maybe a strong word, but it certainly does not exonerate the governor as her representatives were claiming. You know, there is evidence of some real, if not wrongdoing, some real mistakes and some real screw ups that they have yet to really deal with and correct within her office.
Wasn't at the end of the report, which was pretty substantial, but it turns out a lot of that was just appendices or exhibits in conjunction to the actual written report. But it did say at the end that they've referred they have sent on, I guess, the report to the 6th Judicial Circuit prosecuting office and then also to the Attorney General. But that second part is kind of sticky because the AG had representation as well during that committee meeting, right? And kind of not, I guess, in defense of the governor's office or kind of like dodge some questions too. I found that to be kind of bizarre because it's like, how do you refer an audit report that could be holding an office, accountable to wrongdoing if our chief, legal person is the attorney general, but then the attorney general is also kind of already on the side of the governor. It gets a little bit confusing. And that's so similar to what happened with the Board of Corrections too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what do we do?
There's a running theme here. Yeah. Roger Norman, who's head of legislative audit and is very well respected by basically every member of the legislature, he's been in this job for years and years and years, said that when he originally set a meeting with the governor's office to discuss the contents of the audit with them, they're allowed to basically provide some kind of defense. There were legislators and members of the AG's office that were in the room, and he said he just turned around and walked out because that's not the way this is done, right? It is between audit and the governor's office. And so there's a lot of shady stuff happening in the background between the governor's office and the AG's office, it seems, when it comes to this audit. Aaliyah, you were not in the room with me, and for that, you should be grateful, but you were also live tweeting it. What were your thoughts? What were the vibes that you were getting?
Yes, so I was watching the live stream, which I saw you in. I have a screenshot of you in the background. But I just really thought the whole thing was crazy. I think that like their opening remarks, Owsley's opening remarks, I believe, were just like saying, "Oh, we know we didn't do anything wrong, and we cooperated fully and all this stuff." And then they give this whole report about so many things that they did wrong. And I think there's a lot of things in there that's like hard to defend. And then also a lot of things outside, like the video. They brought up the video, and I thought that was so hilarious.
Talk to us about the video. What was the video about?
So I keep calling it like a thirst trap for this podium, right? Because that's really what it is. It's like this podium with Jay-Z in the background.
That is so like that is, I don't know how to feel about that with a lectern, but go on.
It's so bad. Like they called it a tongue-in-cheek video or something and said that this guy, like their creative director, did it on his own time. Like no one paid him to do it or whatever, which it's a pretty high quality video. I can't believe he did it for free. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought the whole thing was wild. And the live stream was so long. I was sitting there in the library watching it, tweeting, but it was also kind of interesting. I found it interesting as like a nerd for this kind of thing, but that's my take on all of it.
It felt like a hype video that you would watch like before a basketball game, like when a player is being announced or like before the game starts and they're like doing like dribble thing and there's like fog machines and like lights and it's all moody with dramatic music. Like that's what it was, but it was the lectern. And then at the end they were like, "Come and take it." And we were like, okay.
It's like no one's trying to do that. We just want to see it.
I just can't emphasize enough how tense the vibe in the room was and how frustrated the legislator is. Like even people on her team, right, in her party, it was just such a rookie mistake, right? One of the things that Senator Payton was saying was, I would be so much less annoyed by this if you guys would just admit that you made a mistake, right? That you're new to the office. A lot of people haven't worked in governor's offices before and you just made a mistake. And they just would not admit any kind of culpability. And that is a huge red flag for me personally.
Yeah, the whole thing is very strange. And then to find out that the lectern didn't have any of the bells and whistles that we thought it was going to have because it was $19,000. It was
Mhm.
just very, very sad.
$19,000 plus a previously undisclosed $2,500 consulting fee that nobody really knows.
I thought it was so funny when Senator Letting was like, so we paid all this money for holes that microphone could go through or something. And I was like, that's wild.
We'll continue to, have updates regarding the lectern gate audit. This is only one of 2 audits. There's another audit that's still in process regarding how the governor dealt with FOIA throughout this whole process. We expect this will probably also look pretty bad for her, but that's, we can't say for sure. So we'll be watching and waiting for that second half of the audit to come out. And then returning to Fiscal's other big theme, the crypto bills. We kind of have a sense of how the fate of crypto is going to go after this fiscal session. So to kind of sum up where we were since the last episode, all of Senator King's resolutions ended up failing in the House, in no small part because Representative David Ray got up and how would you describe what Representative Ray did?
Representative Ray really earned whatever donation he's going to receive from Crypto Lobby. Like
Did an incredible job.
he really came through for Crypto's lobby and solely killed all of King's bills. It was remarkable. They were even joking at the end of it. Representative Miller, who was the House sponsor of those bills, was like, basically he would get done introducing his bill and he'd be like, and now my colleague, Representative David Ray, everybody, and then they would clap or whatever. It was like a joke. But for me, that's not unexpected. Representative Ray is known for running those types of bills and also for being kind of in the pocket of big lobby. That's kind of his thing. So that was not unexpected. What was unexpected to me, I think, was a swing and a miss from Dems who voted against it. For varying reasons. There were a couple who voted for some of them, so it wasn't the entire caucus. But to me, that was just a big miss. I think we need to do better at listening to rural people and their concerns because those matter. And I'm pretty sure that some of us in metro areas, if we were out there with that sound and that kind of concern for our energy and resources, we would have taken this seriously despite being in a fiscal session. So
yeah, we're a nonpartisan group and we're not political strategists. Our whole thing is connecting people with policy, right? And so any party that supports a good policy for the people we're going to be on board with. And so, but it was really disappointing to see so many of the Democrats not, like Jenny said, a real swing and a miss, to see them not support an obviously good policy, right? We weren't huge fans necessarily of all of King's resolutions, all of his proposed bills. There were a few that were a bit out there, but I think Representative Meeks, who is chair of the technology committee, had a really good point when he said, let these bills go through the bill making process. We just want to have all the tools that we possibly can to deal with this significant and growing problem. And some of King's bills may have been good, some of them may have been less good, but they are all tools that the legislator could have used. And so to see, the Democrats could have pushed through all but one. I think if they had all voted yes, all but one of them would have gone through, if I'm remembering the math right. And so it was just a very odd choice by the House Democrats. But all that to say is Missy Irvin and Josh Bryant's versions did get through and they made it to committee, and the committee hearing was less contentious than I thought it would be. Actually, they kind of pretty well sailed through. There were no audible no votes. Irvin and Bryant kind of collaborated to make sure their bills wouldn't overlap or cancel each other out in any way. And again, we're for policy that supports the people, and I think these are good bills. I think these are going to be good bills. They're going to do a lot of good work for these people who are really struggling with these crypto mines, crypto data centers.
Agreed.
A rare W for the RLEG.
Well done. In a fiscal session, nonetheless.
In a fiscal session, no less. Yeah. All right. And then, so those are the two big themes for the week. There are a few other smaller news stories. One of them is that John Payton sponsored a doubling of the Crisis Pregnancy Center grants.
Boo, boo,
Boo.
boo. 2 thumbs down for me.
Boo. Aaliyah, you have lots of opinions on these, we're told.
I have lots of opinions on this. Okay. We did a video on our TikTok not too long ago about this very topic. Crisis pregnancy centers are not healthcare centers, and they are awful and they are disgusting. They spread misinformation and propaganda to stop people from getting the healthcare they need, and it's ridiculous why we're not putting this money into actual healthcare centers, especially when we have a high mortality rate in this country or in this state, but in
Yeah.
this country as well.
In this country
Period.
too.
Yeah, and this is taxpayer money. This is an appropriation from our pockets to Arkansas state government that is being reallocated into these crisis pregnancy centers. And let me just mention, because this ties into some of our work on the Arkansas Abortion Amendment, which for people is a ballot question committee member of Kansans for Limited Government, which is the group that's advocating for the passage of that amendment, is that we have this really big obligation to help educate Arkansans on the state of healthcare. As Aaliyah was saying, it's really abysmal for women and girls in this state. We are under a full abortion ban, and that means that there are no allowances for abortion, even in cases of rape or incest, in cases of a fatal fetal anomaly, meaning that that fetus cannot survive outside of its mother's womb, or in cases to protect a pregnant woman's health. And we only have abortion exceptions for the woman's life. And that is a very murky term that cannot be defined properly legally, and is also really murky for medical providers. They find themselves avoiding offering or providing healthcare at all when it could even approach that cliff. So in order to avoid potential liability, because it is against the law in Arkansas to provide unless the life of the mother is at risk, and there's no clear legal definition, providers are like, we just can't help you. You're going to have to leave this state. And that happens daily in Arkansas. Daily women and their families are having to leave to go get healthcare that would be routine if it weren't for our full abortion ban. So when you think of that, and then you also think of that, how the opposition is really disseminating lies and misinformation about the abortion amendment. They say that it would require taxpayer funding of abortions. That is untrue. There's nothing in the amendment that talks about taxpayer dollars going to provide abortions. But yet the state continues to fund, and then in this case, double, as proposed by Senator Payton, the funding for crisis healthcare centers, pregnancy centers. It's just really such a stark contrast, and it's very clear where our priorities lie as a state, and we need to do better. And that's why we need to pass the Arkansas Abortion Amendment. And if you haven't yet, you need to go sign it, because we are in a time crunch. You need to go sign it. We are weeks away from this deadline. So if you've been sitting around wondering, hey, I'll just sign it whenever. No, you need to go. You need to go now. Go sign it this weekend. So that's my
73
soapbox.
days left.
Yes.
73 days left to go sign. Yeah, and we should also note that many of these crisis pregnancy centers are religiously affiliated too. So tax dollars going to various kinds of religious organizations. So that's, for just worth keeping in mind, I would say.
Food for thought.
Yeah, it's the exceptions for, to save the life of the mother in a medical emergency are just not sufficient at all. And like Aaliyah said, these centers don't really provide health services in the same way that an actual doctor who is free to practice medicine as they have been trained to could provide. And so it's really frustrating to see that kind of state money flowing to these, again, often religiously affiliated crisis pregnancy centers that are not doing necessarily what they say they're doing.
Yeah, it's usually just like a mobile vehicle a lot of times that has an ultrasound in it. And so it's like you have ultrasound technology, like just being able to administer ultrasounds does not make you a healthcare provider. for pregnant
Right.
people, for pregnant
Yeah,
women.
they're not passing out birth control. They're not providing accurate, sex ed or anything like that. They're not actually targeted towards fixing any of the root problems that are, resulting from poor sex ed and poor maternal health care in the state. So it's
Arkansas
frustrating.
taxpayers funding faith-based organizations held to different standards as the rest. That sounds
Where
like
have I heard that
vouchers.
before? Where have I heard that before?
Sounds like school vouchers.
The other, kind of quick news hit from the week is several cabinet members in the governor's cabinet got not insignificant raises. The legislature authorized raises for Secretary Oliva of the Department of Education, Secretary Putman from, I believe she's Health and Human Services. So, Jenny?
Boo, 2 thumbs down from Jenny on this one. This is another ick factor. Like really the only vibes I have from last week are icky. They're icky vibes.
Yeah.
I know there's some good things that happened, but overall I just kind of had a bad taste in my mouth. And I mean, literally when we started fiscal session and the governor gave state of the state, it was like, send me a budget that reduces government bloat and I'll sign it. And yet here we are. It's just like kickbacks and just my people get whatever they want. And it's everybody else that has to take a cut, right? It's everybody else that has to do better or work harder with less money and pay more taxes. But my people, we do what we want, and so far the legislature has said, okay, and has just rubber stamped that.
Yeah. Secretary Oliva, everyone's favorite Florida man, already makes something like $250K, if I'm remembering correctly, which is what, like 5 times the average Arkansan yearly salary. I think he's doing fine. And I think we could probably find better uses for that taxpayer money.
Motion to move to merit pay for these cabinet
Wouldn't
members.
that be nice? Wouldn't that be great?
$50,000 starting salary and then merit pay. Maybe they get a $2,000 bonus, like teachers at the end of the year. And then they have only a certain amount of pot of money that they have to fight for their bonuses with the merit pay, just like teachers. Let's move to that.
Sounds like a great plan. We can introduce them to the concept of bootstraps because they like to tell other people how to use their bootstraps. All right. Anything I missed that you guys want to talk about before we close out?
The Democrat Gazette had an article that said in Q1 of this year, so Q1 is what, January through the end of March, that Arkansas taxpayers funded the government security. We spent $723,000 in Q1 on her security. And like, y'all, there was a Super Bowl situation in there somewhere that they attended. And then there were people online, like her hench people, who were like, we should triple that, quadruple it, spend infinite amount of dollars because it matters. She's the first woman governor and she has small kids and there have been substantial death threats. And it's like, so if you just say that, you can get like whatever funding you want. It's like, let's spend $1 billion on her safety. Did y'all hear yourselves? I don't know. I found that to be like the most icky thing. It just was so gross.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know if you guys are cool with sending your taxpayer money because I paid my taxes last week at the last possible moment. And as I hit that state tax return button, I thought, I wonder what this money is going to get used for. Does the governor also want to go see, I don't know, insert your next big, does she want to go to the Final Four? Like, just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I mean,
Sam, I also paid my taxes at the last minute.
I hate it so much.
I will say that I got a very small amount of money back from the state. And I guess that was just a loan that I gave for the governor's security.
Yeah.
An interest-free loan that I gave to the governor. What can we look forward to?
Not necessarily looking forward to it. This is more of a looking back, but we do want to have a moment of respect for former Senator and Governor David Pryor, who passed away over the weekend, who is an exemplar of the best of Arkansas politics and what Arkansas politics could be. if we had people like him, more people like him. So rest in peace, Senator Pryor.
Absolutely. And I believe there will be he will be laying in state at the Capitol on Friday during, I think, work hours. So the public is welcome to attend. I don't know where in the Capitol. We're assuming somewhere in the rotunda, perhaps. I'm not sure, but
I believe it'll be the second floor rotunda, if I'm remembering the news story correctly. But yeah, if you want to come and pay your respects, Friday's the day to do it.
we definitely need many, many, many more of those cut from the cloth of Senator David Pryor these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you looking forward to this week, Aaliyah?
I mean, other than listening to Taylor Swift's new album, I think I don't know. I don't really have anything. I think it's all gonna be good. Everything's gonna be okay. It always is.
After fiscal session, we will do a podcast solely on how Taylor Swift's new album relates to Arkansas politics.
I will be sick that day. Sorry in advance. I am trying. But that's a lie. I'm not trying. I just don't like her music. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sam and Aaliyah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's
You
a
like
hot
Willie
take.
Carlisle, and so that's all that we really need. As long
We
as we're all
do.
on Willie Carlisle's train, I'm good to
Yeah,
go.
I am on Willie Carlisle's train. Yes,
Okay,
I
that's so
am
good.
blessed to live in Fayetteville, and we love it here for the music. But I think Willie Carlisle goes everywhere. So if you have a chance to ever go see him, 10 out of 10
Take it.
would recommend.
Would absolutely recommend. I think I've seen him 3 times now, and it's been a spiritual experience every time.
Oh,
Yeah, it's been great.
I've seen Taylor Swift twice, so whatever.
was it a spiritual experience for you?
Yes, literally yes.
You're shaking your head as you're saying yes. I am a little confused by that. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the 4AR People podcast. We will be back either at the end of next week or early next week with our week 3 fiscal session episode. And after that, who knows? Who knows where the podcast will go? But we're going to try to keep it up and give you all of the news worth talking about in Arkansas. Thanks very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I stop?
Thank you for watching or listening to our weekly roundup. We hope to do more of these soon, and we hope y'all keep coming back to listen. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts at 4AR People on almost everything and at 4AR People 1 on Twitter.